The panelists for just a few minutes, tell us your names, your departments that you're in, what your practicum was, and then tell us a little bit about how you found it, what the experience was during the practicum, what you learned during it, maybe how it helped you during your second year activities as well. And you can tell us anything else about yourselves that you might feel is fun or interesting or but Sarah, you're closest to me, so you want to go first.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Sarah Lee. I'm second year, obviously, in the SMS department. I'm in the health promotion track. I don't remember how that translates to something promotion research, I think. Briefly, I did my practicum and still in there with the mayor's office to combat domestic violence. So if you're interested in getting help with government and doing research or work through there, that is an interesting place to go. I can tell maybe more about Practicum itself. Briefly, I kind of designed and conducted a community assessment in Brooklyn where there's a high incidence of homicides related to family and intimate partner violence. So we did a community assessment in some communities in Brooklyn, which was really interesting. We're still working on it. I'm using it for my thesis. I'm designing essentially a systems level intervention for the mayor's office and all of their contracting agencies and domestic violence providers in the area. And how I found it was actually a job posting. There was a job posting for a community outreach coordinator at the mayor's office last fall, and it looked like something I wanted to do, and so I sent out an email to the post saying I can't apply for a job right now, but I'm really interested in this position. Can we chat about other opportunities? And by the way, you get interns. So that's how I found the position, and I went and started fairly soon thereafter. So it was, and some of the other things that I've done in a similar fashion by following up. While at my practicum, actually, I read an article on neighborhood involvement in community violence, and I realized that one of the authors worked here in the city, and her email address was on the publication, so I emailed her to ask some questions, and I'm now sort of an on and off again assistant with the project. She has a research project she has going on. So that's really been the way that I've found research opportunities, is by articles and work that I would like to see myself do, and calling, emailing, stalking those people. So, and I've got really good responses. You'd be surprised how many people at least follow up with you via email. So that's generally the process that I took.
I'm Amy Schlegel. I'm a second year in epidemiology, and I found my practicum by Google search. I think that it's important to know what you want out of your practicum, and I'm really interested in pediatric health. And I hadn't really seen much that I was interested in the list that had been kind of given and the resources that Dr. Presley had given me. So I Google searched, and I came across, it was the graduate student internship program. It's now the graduate student epidemiology program through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And it places people in like 30 different areas, and you rank them and based on their project. And I happened to get back to Louisiana, and I worked for the Department of Health and Hospitals for their maternal and child program, and I analyzed unexpected and unintentional child deaths. And I created the report for state legislature there in Louisiana. It was a really amazing experience. I had a wonderful mentor, and I think that having a good mentor and being able to say this is what I want from my experience and going after it is really important. From that, I decided that I didn't think that the information was robust enough for my thesis in EPI. And when I was looking for practicum opportunities, I had met with my advisor, and I explained what I was interested in, and she had given me some names. So I sent some emails to professors here at Columbia I always attach my resume in my email, saying, hey, I'd love to meet with you. I really like your work. Maybe we can discuss some opportunities. I've had very good responses to that method. And so I re-emailed someone I had spoken with in the spring, and I'm now working with Dr. Factor Litvak here at Columbia, and I'm analyzing prenatal exposure to hydroxylated metabolites of PCBs and postnatal neurodevelopment outcomes in a California birth. So I guess use your resources. Your peers might know of something. Make sure to make those connections with faculty. They're wonderful for reference letters, and they're also really good opportunities for research. If you're not going to have a paid position, make sure it's something that you want, an experience you want, or an area that you think will be a good stepping stone for you. I was fortunate that I found my practicum on a whim, on an internet search that was paid, and so it worked out. But if you're going to do something that's not paid, make sure you love it.
Hi, my name is Wan Jane, so I'm a second year Master of Science student in the Theory and Methods track within the Department of Statistics. I'm very happy to be here today to share with you my experience and some of my application process tips with during the summer and also from the last fall semester. So I would partition my practicum into two parts. So I did a summer intern with Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies of Johnson & Johnson during the summer. And when I completed that, I started my more research-focused practicum with one of the professors and with the Department of Biomedical Informatics beginning last fall semester. So to talk about the research practicum, the more research-focused practicum that I had with the Department of Bioinformatics, I found that through emailing to all the professors within our department because as far as I know that the professors within our department, they usually have tons of collaboration projects ongoing with hospitals and also some research institutes around the CUMC campus. So it would be good for you to actually just go knock on their door because they're usually busy and to just take a few minutes to talk to them and ask them whether they have any projects that will be available for you to work with. And usually that turned out really well because these job vacancies are usually not made public online or on any other resources. So just go talk to them. So I talked to one of the professors who actually taught us a class the semester before, and he had like several ongoing projects, and I had this freedom to actually choose from them those that interested me the most. Due to my personal interest in informatics, I choose the one that actually has collaboration with that department. So that's how I found that. And then for the summer internship, I found that through using the experience.com website. It's actually part of the OCS system, so I would really recommend you to look closely to their weekly emails as well as all these job updates on the website because these jobs that are listed there, you would have the highest probability to get noticed from the employers. So for that internship, I would say it's more of a health economics and outcomes research internship. So I wasn't a perfect HEOR background, but I think the tip that I can give here is that you really have to build up that connection between the job in that job description and your previous experience, because I think that's part of the decision factors that the company actually made the decision to give me that opportunity to work with the team. I was a statistic background. What I did is I tried to build up the connection between statistics and the part within the health economics research that can be related with each other. So I would say that's an important thing that you would do when you do the application. So for that internship, what I did is so as I said, I did the health economics and outcomes research. I looked at, so I basically worked in the context of the health technology assessment initiatives that are widespread in Europe. I'm not sure if any one of you knows anything about comparative effectiveness research initiated in the US. So basically we're looking at evidence that can strengthen the product's value proposition and try to prove to people that the drug is cost effective as well as clinically effective. So the outcome actually was not too bad. I was able to write up 2 abstracts with the team under the help of my supervisor, and we submitted to the Eastport conference, and I'm now looking forward to attend the conference
I'm Abby Krumholtz. I actually just finished the MPH here. I was in PopFam department and in the forced migration and health track, which I think translates to the humanitarian action or something like that, something with humanitarian in the title. So I did my practicum this summer in northern Ghana, working on a qualitative study that looked at a community-based healthcare program called CHIPS, the scale-up of that program, and looking at the atrophy of family planning services in particular. It was a qualitative study, so it involved a lot of like interviews and focus groups. And I was there sort of in a coordinator role with a Ghanaian counterpart, and kind of just coordinating all of the focus groups and interviews with the research team and creating the study tools and things like that. It was a really great experience. This was under the auspices of Jim Phillips, who's a professor in PopFam. The way that I found the opportunity was through the PopFam, I'm not sure what it's called, like they had basically a website that basically listed a bunch of practicum opportunities, and I applied for it, and I really honestly just happened to luck out and that they contacted me for an interview. A lot of people reach out to professors, and I think that that's a really great idea to kind of find out what's out there. A lot of my friends in my track, we all were sort of under the impression that a lot more practicum opportunities were going to be presented to us. That's sort of the impression that we had gotten from listening to all of the presentations of the students the year before, and we quickly found out that there just didn't happen to be so many opportunities like just laid out for us to choose from. So many of us were kind of scrambling to find something later than we wanted. There was a lot of anxiety. I'm sure all of you are here because you're anxious about finding practicums. So there was a lot of anxiety about that. Like I said, it worked out really nicely and easily for me. But my friends, were really proactive in finding stuff. Like, many had internships, and they tried to use all the contacts they had. For those of you who are looking to do international work, I guess it depends on what department you're in, but I know that there is funding available. I know that for those of us who are in the forced migration track, there was funding available for all of us. And so I think that if you were to contact people from different organizations that might be of interest to you and basically say that you would be able to do it and wouldn't necessarily require funding from them, a lot of people are like desperate for assistance with projects. And so I think that it's easy to feel like you're imposing on other people, but in fact, a lot of people would really love to have students, for a couple of months at a time working on a project that could pretty much go anywhere and would do whatever they say. So I think that you all probably have like more, not an upper hand, but more, to work with than you might think that you have. I should also add that my practicum turned into a research assistant position in the fall in the PopFam department, which has been really awesome. So I think that working for a professor at Melman could potentially lead to future opportunities. I know some of you guys have talked about that. Can lead to continuing opportunities, which has really been wonderful for me and really valuable. And the research that I did over the summer basically turned into my capstone. Why, in part, I was able to finish a semester early, which was that I used the research that we had gathered over the summer and used a portion of it to write my capstone paper. So I'm fortunate for the opportunity and highly recommend using the resources at hand here at school.
Good. Thank you, Kelly. I'm hearing a lot of common themes right now. How professors, get to know them, talk to them, see what opportunities they have for you. Use online databases or other databases available through the department, third parties. But just doing the legwork to get out there and find what opportunities exist. I have a quick question for all four of you. Let's go down the line real quickly. When during the academic year did you have your practicum locked up?
I had mine locked up early. I started in March, so this time last year. Part of that is because at the time I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in the city for the summer. I'm from Oregon, so over the break I set up some informational interviews with some coalitions and different agencies there, and so I kind of had to decide. And then I got called back to the mayor's office by the time I returned to the city, so I had to kind of decide early what I was going to do. And so starting off early by checking out my hometown kind of forced me to make that decision early. And then I was able to start early, which is necessary. So
I had met with Dr. Proctor back, who are now working with my thesis, and she had an unpaid opportunity for me, so I had already met with her probably in like February, and I told her that I was going to need some time to think about it because I had applied for some other opportunities. And I found out the day I got back from spring break that I got the position in Morgan's.
So for me, I actually started looking for positions for my summer internship pretty early. That's like at the end of my first semester, which was December, maybe 2011, something like that. Because we did actually receive emails from OCS or from within the department about some availability around, and then some of the pharmaceuticals actually started sending out those postings to different schools pretty early, like in winter. So that was the time that I started looking for a summer internship. But I think the peak that I got the most responses is within like February the next year. So it's really you really have to wait probably until that point that you will receive responses from all these applications that you sent out earlier. And I got my summer internship locked in the month of April, which is it's a little bit late, but it was a surprise for me. So for my research practicum, I actually sent emails, talked to those professors after I came back from summer, so which was around the beginning of the third semester. But as I said, it could be considered a little easier to go talk to professors and ask them for opportunities. So it wouldn't be necessarily taking you a lot of time to actually go through all that process and successfully find one. So
I had my first interview, I think, in early March, right before spring break, and then I had a follow-up interview with Professor Phillips, I guess, right after spring break, and that's sort of when I knew. So I guess I'd say I knew by the end of March, and then I ended up leaving like May 15th or something like that, really quickly after the semester had ended. But I will say that most of the students in my track had no idea what they were doing. Some of them didn't even know until like middle of May, a week before they ended up leaving. So I guess it depends, what kind of stability or knowledge you need in advance, but that it wasn't. I knew far earlier than most people tended to know.
I wanted to, I had already taken my position and started in Louisiana when I was getting calls from New York organizations, like the health resource, whatever the one through the Department of Health is. I was getting calls like into late May and June once I had already started and accepted another position.
I would just reiterate that I wouldn't worry so much about the time thing. It's only when it's been summer's a really convenient time to do your practicum, but you can do it now or you can do it in the fall. Or it doesn't, a lot of times students have anything set up with your back till June or starting July. If you're working full time, then you still complete it by the end of summer. So there are opportunities and there are things that became available later in the semester that myself already committed to the mayor's office that I couldn't work at. So there are obviously cost benefits to both sides of that.
Great, thank you. I mean, we're all here, I think, because we're still looking for practicum, so it's nice to hear that I made already. So each of you just really briefly talk about application processes that you went through, whether or not you had to do writing samples, where you got references from, if you needed references, while your interviews. So we don't have a ton of time, but I want to give time for people to answer questions. Half an hour in, but just quickly talk about what that was like.
Mine is right back door, so I didn't have to do any of that, which was great. I did have to do a resume and I did sort of informal interviews, but it was all sort of self-initiated, so I sent off my resume. None of them asked for rating samples. But like I said, what I did was more applied research kind of stuff. So I did focus group interviews and that kind of thing, but in a community assessment setting. And so yeah, so I didn't have to do much of that. I did have references on hand, and I used both previous professional experience that was related to the field as well as new faculty that could vouch for my skill set. So I think looking for either the type, like the area of work that you want to do, or knowing like what skills you need to learn or put to use is a really good way to go into it. And will be impressive also for interviews if you can say, I really want to participate in this part of your research, or I know how to do this, but can I have more experience with this? And a lot of people talk to me about basically how they can set up the practicum for me to help write lines on the resume. You know, what is it that you want to accomplish? So that was a useful way of thinking about what you wanted to get out of it. But I didn't.
When I applied for X-Scholars, HOTP, and the GSIP program, and those were all like full applications with personal statements, and especially the GSIP one had all the subcategories. I think most of those deadlines have passed, although HOTP does have a cycle that starts in the fall, so if that's something that you're considering for next year, they have both paid and unpaid positions, so it's a very interesting thing to look at. As far as references, I switched departments after my first term. I started out in SMS and I switched to EPI. So I didn't know who to ask for my reference letters, and I felt like I had such strong letters from before I came to Columbia, and I was really worried that that was going to be the thing that hindered me from succeeding in my applications. So I met with my newly assigned advisor, and I also met with Dr. Presley from Practicum, and I explained to both of them. I was like, I don't know what to do. What do you recommend? And so we ended up, my new advisor wrote one, and she had me read it and kind of tweaked it. And if there's one thing about Columbia professors and personnel, they know how to write a really good recommendation letter. So even if you're not quite sure, they'll ask you for materials, and sometimes they'll have you look it over. It's more about contacting them and making that step to try to build your relationship with them. They really, on the whole, they really do want to help you succeed. There are some that don't, but on the whole, don't take it personally. We're all very busy. So that would be.
All right. So basically for those industry jobs that I was interested in, I applied through the experience system because that was the place that I found most of the positions were. So I applied through the system, and I think I interviewed with Bayer and then Boehringer Ingelheim, and as well as Johnson Johnson. But these are all the positions with either biostatistics or HEOR that I was just mentioning. So the interviews were pretty basic, because usually like those companies, they look for, especially your first year, they don't really look for, like people with a lot of capability in technical, and they look for students who are really showing their passion and their interest in these jobs, and they have the potential to do it under the supervision of some people. So you don't really have to be very nervous about whether or not they will, shoot you with a lot of technical questions in the interview, but basically be prepared with your previous research experience, and then they will very likely to ask you about your long-term and short-term goals. So be prepared when you're talking with them. And then also, actually, before the interview, like within your application, the resume and cover letter, you really need to tailor these very well with the job description. And then to really point it out, the connection between your background, your previous experience, and whatever work you will do within the job. So I actually also applied to HRTP. I think it's a good opportunity. I did this hear back in March and April, but that was like after I received the offer from J&J. So there's one tip here, that even though you received an offer from somewhere else, you don't want to lose that connection with, other places that are sending over their invitations for interviews. So just to mention in the email that you want to keep in contact with them, and then to see if there's any opportunities available in fall that you can come back from the summer and still be considered for a position. So for the research practicum, I think I talked to the professor like face to face. So basically, I just sent an email first and then went and talked to them. I would say you have to probably send emails to a couple of them because they're usually busy, and some they probably will just not reply your email, but don't be discouraged. Just email as many people as you can, and you will hear back from some of them. So.
I would say that my application process was considerably less formal than theirs. Like I said, I just applied through the online, I don't even know what you call it, the online process through PopFam, which included, I think, uploading my resume, and there were, when you chose the practicum that was interesting to you, I think we could choose two, you basically write like a little blurb about why it interested you, and just, it sort of felt kind of silly to me to write that at the time, because all I really know about these programs is what I read online, so it just seemed a little, superficial. But so that was that, and I will also say that a lot of my friends, it was also much less formal, like basically finding a website of an organization and finding an individual who maybe it sort of looks like they might have something interesting going on and contacting them. I would say just have a really nice looking resume, so that would be impressive, but that's sort of obvious. But yeah, so that's
Great, thank you. At this point, we can open up for questions from the audience. Raise your hand.
Is there anything you would have done differently looking back?
I think one thing that I will say in terms, I'm using my